Okay, we're in summer league territory here. Summer league for some teams is super exciting. You get like the Zion Williamson versus R.J. Barrett game the other night that was kind of like tune-in television, appointment television, which is crazy about where the NBA is going. And then you get the Nets summer league, which is a little bit of a different animal. Maybe not as high profile the summer league because summer league is meant for the young players, and the Nets don't have a ton of those guys. But you've been watching a little more summer league than I have so far. Do you have any takeaways from what you've seen? The Nets don't have an overwhelming amount of young guys, just because this is what sort of happens when you're a team that's built the way they are right now. But you've watched. I'm just gonna admit it right now. I've not watched the two summer league games, but you have. Do you have any takeaways from sort of what you've seen? Some of these guys we saw just in the regular season last year, but what have you been seeing in summer league?
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at who's been playing in these games, obviously you look at Hands and you look at Claxton, the two rookies, and you just want them to be getting reps and getting into the flow of the game. And I saw some exciting things from Claxton. He kind of fits his description coming out of the draft. He's going to attack the rim. He's great on the couple of alley-oops that he had in the games, which was nice to see. Jalen Hands played in one game, and he looked strong as well. The notable thing for him, I think, was that defensive rebounds, rather. He's efficient at that. So you always want to see that out of your guard positions, players that are going to be contributing on the defensive end and getting up there and grabbing some of those extra loose balls if your big men are boxing out against your opponent. The other thing that I was noticing, though, is, like you said, some of these guys we saw last year. Now, Musa had some injuries, but you're seeing a lot of him, and you're also seeing a lot of Kurucs in these games. When you look at the Croatia game that just got played, I think it was just yesterday, 20 minutes and 23 minutes, 20 for Musa, 23 for Kurucs. So what I assume this is letting you know is that these are guys that they want to have them keep working on their game, because you've brought in some additional veterans on this team, and in terms of carving out their roles and seeing how they're going to fit in, because it is going to be that heavy rotation. Positive takeaways is that Kurucs looks good, and I think him playing last year, getting extra reps during the season, whether it was through injury or because he really played himself into that role, he looks strong out there. Musa looks like a guy that's maybe still trying to get himself back into rhythm, because he didn't see any time on the court last year. So both of these games, I think the minutes upticks are nice for them. Kurucs did a little bit of time shooting more from the perimeter, which I think is going to be a part of his game that he tries to expand. Mm-hmm. And then the other interesting part, and this is going to lead right into your wheelhouse, is Jared Allen. Now, he played in the first game against the Mavericks, logged heavy minutes, 29 minutes, put up 19 points. He shot 67% from the field, attempted 2 3-pointers, didn't make either of them. Also looked good at the free throw line. So I don't want to get too long-winded on it. I want to open up to you. He had great rebound numbers. Second game with Croatia was not as strong for him. Couple of just like mental errors, passing errors. And now that's stuff that, you chalk up to this summer league. You got so many different guys in there. But I'm curious to hear what your take is on why he's playing in these summer games, given that he is locked into a role on this team. And then beyond that, the other curiosity I have is plus-minus numbers. You may wipe this right off the board for me and tell me it doesn't matter in summer league, but there's some indications about plus-minus on the court. Jared Allen in that first game, -7. So
yeah.
I know you want to get into.
I wouldn't take anything from that. I'm just going to cut that. Yeah. I wouldn't take anything from plus minus. He's playing with. First of all, it's extremely rare. For as much as I don't really tend to go crazy about summer league, it is rare to have guys who essentially started. Kirk started last year, and Allen for sure did. To have these guys playing in summer league they might just be short on bodies more than anything else, because they just are. They don't have a ton of young guys, a ton of two-way guys right now, just because of all the signings they made. So, but it is a little odd for Allen and Kurucs to be playing and logging somewhat heavy minutes. I wrote a longer piece last week about my trying to figure out if any Nets plan this year was going to be for them to try to pair Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan together at all. Like if they thought there was any possibility of those guys sharing the court together. And I'm not going to go through the whole article because it's just going to get into a too long-winded thing. You can go see it on We Got Nets. It's up there. I'll put it in the show notes as well. So to go check it out. And because I did spend a lot of time, I basically watched every Allen three-pointer last year, watched him at the free throw line, and tried to determine if he was a guy that the Nets thought that they could end up turning into a stretch for. Because basically the cliff notes here are the only way Jordan and Allen can play together is if Allen can stretch the court. Jordan's not going to. That's not going to happen for his game. It's pretty well known. But Allen, I think there's some real positive signs that that this might actually be the plan, that they might envision him looking more like what Brook Lopez ultimately looked like, 5 or 6 years into his career when they kind of made the jump to push him out behind the perimeter. And Allen, I mean, you watched the summer league games he took. He averaged less than one 3-point attempt last year. And how many is he taken? 3 total or 4 total in summer league so far? What was the number? Yeah.
Over 2 games, he has 3 3-point attempts, which sounds like nothing, but that means he's averaging 1.5 a game. So already it's double. To your point.
Right. Yep. That's double what he averaged in a regular season, and that's not insignificant. I know people go 1.5, whatever. That's not a number that jumps out to you for sure, but that's a real. Maybe that's not what's going to happen during the season, but it looked very clear to me when I looked at his shot chart from last year that there was at least a plan, even if the plan was not put into action a lot, which was, if you look at his shot chart, Jared Allen's I'm talking about here, he took, almost 99% of his shots were just right around the rim on dunks, essentially, but the 3-pointers he took were exclusively below the break in the corners. He was terrible at them, shot like 12% for the year, but that it was very clear that it was like, if you find yourself in the corner, or if D'Angelo Russell, because a lot of these happen on D'Angelo Russell sort of isolations or just clear outs, that if he's one-on-one with a defender, you're to go stand in the corner, and if you're wide open, shoot the 3-pointer. Like that looked like what the coaches probably told him ahead of time. Only if you're wide open, only maybe if the shot clock's running down, but you can take these 3-pointers. But the fact that they even let it happen showed to me that like this might be the first little piece along the progression of turning him into a guy that can maybe step out behind the 3-point line. Because and go ahead.
No, and let me say that in this last game against Croatia, and I'll be curious to watch it, the only 3-point attempt that he had in this game, he had 2 in the first one against the Mavericks. He was at the top of the key, and it was it looked specifically designed for this pass to come to him at the top of the key with the center, playing back off of him, and it was a lined up 3-point shot. Didn't go in. His form looked great, but I think it's to your point. This was a specific play for him to take this 3-point shot. So I think
who took that 3-point shot a lot he had a different guard last year, was Al Horford. Like that was Al Horford's 3-point. That was a territory that he sort of lived in for 3-pointers, and it was because it was on pick and roll switches with Kyrie that could get you that look a lot. Right? Kyrie is the guy and a guy that can get you that look sort of over and over and over again, because if the defense needs to come help him on dribble penetration, then if you're the kind of guy that can stand basically top of the key 3-pointer, which was what Horford sort of made his bones on, then all of a sudden that's a shot you can look at a lot. So I'm actually very encouraged to hear that was sort of the placement of it. Again, it's one 3-pointer. I don't want to go crazy about this, and I wrote this article without knowing sort of what the summer league plan was. I just tended to think this might be a place they would go, and I kind of wanted to watch him a little bit more to see if I thought that was a place for his game to go. And I really do think it is. I think that you're going to see 1.2 3-pointers a game, 1.25, something like that. Not a crazy amount, but it would represent a double. And if that's the case, then all of a sudden you might be able to get 7 or 8 minutes a game of DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen together. And I think that's going to be kind of important for their side. You watched the Nets last year. They got curb stomped by big men during the season last year. And it could be the problem this year too. I mean, can you envision a scenario where these two guys are playing again? It'd be so different than what we saw last year, but I think we might be looking at a marked shift in how the Nets are going to sort of approach their big men this season.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of spacing and play and how it impacts things on both ends of the court will be interesting to me, because if they're on the court at the same time, then defensively you're asking Allen to be stepping out on a power forward. Yep. Now he showed that he can do it. He did do it last season. Was he a half step slow getting out? Certainly, but if he has the freedom to focus on stepping out on a power forward with DeAndre Jordan covering the center and being underneath the basket more, I think that it will give him a little more flexibility. And then I think, like you say, how many minutes do you see that happen? It's not going to be the bulk of a game, but if it allows them that flexibility to keep a little more size on the court for stretches, it should impact them both defensively and then hopefully on the offensive end. It's also going to start to free some things up. So I'll pat you on the back here. I think it was a really well-timed article examining this, because it feeds right into what I was seeing in these couple of summer league games so far.
And they're going to get lucky here because they're going to be sort of forced to be able to try it out against just the way some of these teams are now constructed. We talked a little bit this last time, but the Sixers now have double bigs in Horford and Embiid. You might just be forced to just run those two guys out together to deal with that kind of size. Indiana Pacers very much look like they're going to start Sabonis and Miles Turner together. That's a situation that's not going to expose Allen. Neither of those two guys. They're both good, but they're not going to be guys that can necessarily take him off the dribble, let's say. So there's going to be, I think that's going to be a chance to maybe see that a little bit. Look, if they play the Lakers might be starting Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins alongside each other, or even JaVale McGee, depending on where they want to go. So we're looking at sort of a double big situation there as well. So some of these teams have just gotten big across the board in a way that we haven't really seen NBA teams go in recent memory. And I think that could precipitate some of this move as well. Is that they're just going to say we just can't run Taurean Prince and Jared Allen against these teams. We're going to get absolutely completely destroyed if Taurean Prince is playing the 4 or Wilson Chandler's playing the 4 or whoever ends up kind of playing the power forward position there. I mean, I think Kurik's sort of cycled in there at times as well too. So I think we're going to see more of it this season. I want to be right. I like when I predict things and they're right. That's the only reason at this point I want them to be able to shoot 3-pointers. I just want to have been right on it. So let's just quickly talk about a couple of these other. Talk to everyone out there about some of the other free agent signings that kind of happened in the time since our last podcast. We spent a lot of time. We spent mostly of the time on Kyrie and KD, obviously, but there were a couple other sort of loose around the edges signings that the Nets made, and we can just talk briefly about what those mean for the team.
Yeah, so I mean, and you just brought his name up, Prince. Taurean Prince. They bring him in. Essentially, he replaces DeMar Carroll for you. And what does that do for this team? It trends in the same direction of having a guy like DeAndre Jordan on the roster. It gets you bigger at certain positions, gives you a little more muscle at certain positions. So, of course, I went ahead and did the deep dive on stat lines for these two players, comparing Carroll with Prince. And, what do you get out of Prince that you're not getting out of Carroll? Well, for starters, they're basically even on field goal percentage. So that's going to be, about a wash there. However, Taurean Prince, for his career, averages 4.5 3-point attempts per game to DeMar Carroll's 3.3. So you're going to get more 3-point attempts. He also shot at a slightly better clip at 38% over 36%. So again, when you have Kyrie on the floor, it spaces things better. It's going to give more open looks. You want a guy that can knock down those shots when he has the opportunities. They're basically a wash, like I said, on their field goal percentage. And then the other number that you want to look at, too, is that they are averaging more points per game for Taurean Prince, almost 3 more points per game over DeMar Carroll. And then defensive and offensive rebounds is the other area. Now, interestingly enough, DeMar Carroll is a better offensive rebounder, I'll say, at 1.2 over half a rebound for Prince. But defensively, they're even. Prince is a little bit better. And again, when you bring in a guy like DeAndre Jordan, it makes Prince's role offensively on the rebounds a little bit, less concerning or, less of a necessity. So that's a really overall, this is a positive. It increases 3-point percentage, increases defensive size and strength. So I think it feeds into the role that they want these players to have, as opposed to last year where you're kind of trying to squeeze a round peg into a square hole. The second, I don't know if you have any commentary on that, but
no, they're eventually the same guy. They're very much the same guy. They're the same size, the same height and weight, essentially. They have the same hair. Everything. The Taurean Prince is just younger. I think it's mostly the same thing. I've made that joke before about the hair, but they really, for all intents and purposes, are essentially the same guy, with Prince's contract being a little better and he's a little bit younger. And I think the other thing too is he's friends with Kevin Durant, and I don't know how much that played into it beforehand. I don't know if that was a writing on the wall thing. The Nets were very confident that they were getting Durant and Durant and Kyrie, mm-hmm. and Prince supposedly is very good friends with Durant, and so I don't know if that move was just we're 100% positive we're signing him, so we're going to go get your friend too, and we're just everyone's shaking hands behind the scenes already. So I don't know how much that played into it, but that has been reported that those dudes, they are buds. So it really does seem like this deal is one of those other little signs that this deal had been done well ahead of time, and they just got the younger version of DeMar Carroll essentially.
Right, and then so the flip side of it is going older for younger was Rondae Hollis-Jefferson leaves in free agency, and we bring in Wilson Chandler. And, really, you're going to notice the trend here. First of all, he's a far better 3-point shooter. That's the big number, right? Chandler is hitting almost 34% of his 3-point attempts. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson averaged 22, which basically makes him a detriment when he's trying those things out for you. He might as well be Jared Allen taking those shots. So that's the big number that I think is the only one really worth pointing out there. He averages 4 more points a game over Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's average. He's a little bit bigger, veteran presence on this team. And again, they're pretty much a wash on field goal percentages, both at 44%. And likewise, offense and defense, it's pretty much going to be the same thing, rebound-wise, and what your expectations are. And they average same amount of steals, same amount of assists. So I think it is. It's player for player, but what you're getting in both of these cases is you're getting younger and a little bit stronger when you bring in Prince over Carroll, and then for Chandler, a little bit bigger and a better perimeter shooter, which is what you want on this team. Any area that you saw last season where they lacked a perimeter shot, that's what they were looking to improve with the offseason moves outside of like the DeAndre Jordan signing. So I think it just indicates that the Nets are improving their roster overall, improving guys that are going to be coming in off the bench so that you don't find yourself, as I saw a lot of times last year, Nets hit bad stretches in games. They hit, there were times in games where they could not find a shot. And now with these players, the expectations is that they'll be able to knock some of these down and feather that time when you have some of your starters on the bench.
Yeah, these are like the classic 3-and-D guys, right? Like this is just what the very definitions when you look at 3-and-D, just the 3-pointer and defenses. If you never heard that term before, but I know you have. I'm saying to the listener that these like guys like Prince, guys like Wilson Chandler, Garrett Temple fits that. I know they signed him. He's going to play like 11, 12 minutes a game, something like that. I don't think it's going to be more than that. These guys just fit that mold almost. This is like what they drew him up on. The one issue with Chandler, I like him a lot as a player. He's exactly what they need. He shot really well, like 30. He shot 39% from 3 last year, which is excellent. He hovers right around. In a good year, he's going to shoot like 35, 36%, and he's big too. He's like 6'9", so he can guard. He can go into small ball 4 kind of stuff. He's just injured all the time is the problem. Like his big issue is he just has not been able to stay on the court for the last 2 seasons. He's played a combined 51 games over the last 2 years. So it's just been an injury issue more than anything else. I'm pretty sure a lot of those were back issues too, and I'll look that up. It's either back or hamstring. But though I know whatever the injuries were, because I remember just thinking this at the time, it was the kind that kind of recur. Like these weren't injuries like torn ACLs and things like this that there's a recovery time and then you just get out. I don't think. I'll go look this up again, but I'm pretty sure the injuries that he's had have been sort of recurring, and so that is a little bit of concern about how much he's actually going to be able to play. He did play 36 games last year, only played 15 the year before for the Clippers. But if you get a half a season out of him of health or a full season, then he kind of is exactly the kind of guy that the Nets have just kind of, that this is the kind of guy they've been wanting to sign over the last couple of years, and is generally just correct if you can get them coming cheap. All right. I think we're going to get out of here for episode 5. It's already been an awesome summer. I'm excited to keep talking. We'll be coming at you every week, obviously, with all the Nets news. It does slow down things. Slow down a little bit near the end of the summer as teams sort of just kind of regroup before the opening season. But we'll be back talking, and we'll talk about the schedule. We'll talk about some of these other summer league games. Excited to talk about all this Net stuff. It feels like there's this new stuff coming up every day. Before we do that, tell us a little bit. We got some also exciting things coming down the pike. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Patreon, then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, so I mean, if any of the fans are familiar with it, Patreon's a great platform where you can kind of support this podcast and what we're trying to do. And our goal is to be providing more content and different exciting things for the fan base to go over and check out. So we're going to have more information probably on next week's podcast, but within the next week or two, we're going to be launching it. Things like in-depth articles, a little more analysis about training camp and the summer league, and just other things that hopefully Nets fans are going to be excited about, even some opportunities for fans to interact with us as well. So that'll be coming along in the next week or so, and I'm really excited to get that off the ground and give hopefully our growing fan base some additional content to be pumped about.
Yeah, for sure, man. We're really excited. The numbers have only grown week after week with each of these episodes, so it's really encouraging. We want to just keep doing more and more. In the meantime, between now and when Patreon comes out, if you do want to support the podcast, there's some really easy ways you can go do it that cost you nothing. One is just go over to iTunes, rate and review, and subscribe to the podcast. It's a big deal for us to have those iTunes downloads and the rating and review, because it helps us climb the charts, especially for Brooklyn Brooklyn Nets podcast. You can do the same at Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you kind of hang out on social media. All of that stuff is totally free. It's just a click or two, and it really, really helps us grow. So go check that out. I'll put all the links in the show notes so there's no confusion about it. You can just type in We Got Nets into any of those podcast platforms too, and we'll come up. So if you're looking to support the show in the meantime, really appreciate it. Go on over, do those little clicks. Help us keep growing, and we'll be back next week talking more Nets. Buddy, enjoy the week. Talk Nets next week.
I love it. See you then.